Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome to this year's video gaming conference. This year, due to the pandemic, unfortunately, we're breaking the habit of meeting in person. And as much as I would have liked to meet all of you budding digital entrepreneurs in person, I hope the comfort of your own homes will be conducive to learning experience, as I'm aware that you are all here to learn how to design a game that will maximize profit. And let's start off with some numbers and a bit of history. Mobile games have come a long way. The earliest mobile game is the Tetris variant, which was released in 1994, before some of you were even born. But most people's mobile game experience is with the game Snake, launched by Nokia. And I remember playing that game on my mom's mobile phone back then when actual keypads was a thing. But now mobile games have come a long way thanks to the advancement of smartphones. Angry Birds was the first wildly popular mobile game, and it was released in 2009. Following its successful example, Candy Crush, Pokemon Go, Clash of Clans, and Fruit Ninja are all mobile games that have more than 5 years of history and still have a large number of daily active users, or DAUs. Games are also the most profitable mobile apps. In 2017, 80% of all the app revenue came from mobile games. Now, mobile gaming is a $135 billion industry. Not only is it still expanding, it takes the lion's share of people's entertainment spending, with a staggering 61.7 billion US dollars spent on mobile games in 2019. It accounts for almost half of the global gaming market, which, if you think about it, is quite amazing because you have computer games and you have a number of consoles like Wii or PlayStation that are designed specifically for gaming. Yet, half the people are like, nope, I still want to play on my mobile phone. And Asia Pacific makes up about half of the mobile game market, and 25% of game spending is in China. The average American consumer spent $77.6 on mobile games in 2016. The top 5 most profitable mobile games in 2019 were Honor of Kings, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Fate Grand Order, Candy Crush Saga, and Pokemon Go. All of these games generated more than $3 billion since their release. All is to say, if you want to make a profit from the mobile game market, you've made the right decision. There are a few ways that mobile games can make money. You could make players pay up front to download the game, like how we used to purchase games from the stores. You could also sell advertising space in the game and make players pay to get rid of the ads. But the best way to monetize a game is through in-app purchases or microtransactions. All of the top grossing games I mentioned earlier follow this model. They're free to download, free to play, but have some sort of in-game currency or premium content that players have to pay to access. If you're wondering if anyone is willing to pay if the game is free, the answer is clearly yes. There will be some people who are free to play or F2P players, but that's fine. My significant other has been playing Clash of Clans for 7 years and has not spent a penny. But the 80-20 rule applies to mobile games. With carefully crafted design, 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of the players. And you have to keep the players hooked and invested in the game for continued revenue generation. So now it's time for a deep dive into the psychology of players and how to design a game to take advantage of different behavioral tendencies so that players keep spending money and you keep profiting. You have to design a game in a way that satisfies different types of players. And as for types of players, Richard Bartle, a British researcher, has a very clever way of categorizing different types. According to Mr. Bartle, the first type is the achiever. Achievers are all about progress. They like to gain points and status. They like to level up. They want to collect concrete things that show that they're progressing in game, things like badges or equipment. And this is a type of person who responds well to incentive schemes like air miles in real life. They view every mile collected as an achievement in its own right. Roughly 10% of the players are this type, but most of your revenue is going to come from achievers. So you can sell convenience or shortcuts to achievers, faster ways of building things in-game or faster ways of leveling up. You can also sell things that allow them to achieve something and show their achievement. For example, a very difficult challenge quest and a badge that show that they've completed the quest. The second type of player is the explorer, which also makes up about 10% of the user base. Explorers are content consumers. They like to explore around elaborate virtual maps, getting to know the mechanics of the game, trying different equipments, different team compositions, and discovering little secrets or Easter eggs. They do not care as much about status or prizes. Creating content and selling content can be very expensive and time-consuming. Let's take Fate Grand Order as an example. It is a mobile game known for having great story, quality writing, and well-developed characters. It takes the dev team 4 to 5 months to create a new story chapter. And each character, from conception to design to making in-game battle sprite to auditioning voice actors and recording their voice lines, takes half a year. And in this game, there's hundreds of characters. So you can imagine how much energy and time that the devs put into creating all of this content. And needless to say, not every team can keep up with demand of creating such content. Explorers are not the most likely type to spend money either. But I would argue that they're the most important type of player to keep in your user base. Why? Because explorers are the most likely type to share the little secrets, mechanisms, maps, and tricks that they discover in the game world. They're the type that creates tutorials and walkthroughs and guides to help the other players. The discoveries that explorers make will eventually trickle down to the achievers, which are the hard workers, and the game guides will help them to progress faster, and they're more likely to spend money in the game because it's rewarding for them. So for what the explorers lack in direct revenue generation, they more than make up by adding value to the game's community. And an active player community goes a long way in helping your game stay relevant and retaining all the other types of players. In addition, explorers also make for easy prey for the killer type of players. To maintain explorers, you just have to introduce different modes or characters or equipment or mechanisms from time to time, or add a few little jokes or Easter eggs here and there. Since I mentioned the killers, let's take a look at what this ominous sounding type wants. Killers are similar to explorers in that they get a thrill from gaining points or winning. But what sets killers apart is that killers are highly competitive. They would rather be feared than loved. They thrive on competition with others, and they prefer killing other players instead of killing computer-controlled opponents. They like to see others lose. Killers aren't just into killing other players in-game. They also tend to look for and abuse loopholes and designs in the game's mechanism. The killer is the rarest type, only making up 1% of the player population. Although they only make up such a tiny proportion, they're very likely to spend money on the game if the game provides enough satisfaction for them. The best items to sell to killers are extra weapons, extra health, extra stealth, or anything that helps give advantage in the killing department. But you must be careful not to tip the balance too much in the killer's favor, because if you make it too obvious that the game is pay to win, then you're going to drive the other players away. The last type of player is the socializer. They make up 80% of the whole group of players. As the name might suggest, socializers want to form connections with the other players. They want to share stories and tactics and progress together with others, and they gain the most enjoyment from interactions with other players. They're the opposite of the killers in that they would rather be loved than feared. To make socializers happy, you need to build some in-game communication channels such as friend chat or news feeds. Socializers tend to spend money on cool character outfits or cool gears, the same way that we wear clothes and follow trends to fit in our own peer groups in the real world. You can enhance socializers' experience with in-game boosts such as extra lives that are only obtainable from other players. With this, you will create a courtesy economy that encourages users to make friends in-game or get their real-life friends to play the game. And the presence of in-game friends or real-life friends in the game will validate the game's role in the socializer's life, and this creates a positive feedback loop for them. To make further profit off of socializers, you can put a price tag on the items that are available in the courtesy economy that you created in the game. Apart from selling items based on player type, it is also a good idea to sell according to the stage of progress that the player is in. The stages are sometimes referred to as hook, habit, and hobby. The hook phase is when a player is new to the game. They may have started because of the hype, because of the character design, or whatever reason. After this phase, the attachment to the game develops into the habit phase, where the player plays several times a day. And the last phase is the hobby phase, where the player spends more time thinking about the game even when they're not playing, and they're just trying to think about strategies and reading up on the characters and mechanisms. To sell in the hook phase, you want to offer an icebreaker item, something of great value. For example, let's say your in-game currency costs $20 for 100 coins, but you can introduce a first-time discount and offer 100 coins for $3. With something discounted that feels valuable, you can convert players into paying customers. Plus, if the player buys the icebreaker item and spends money, they're more likely to spend more money down the road. And this is great for continued revenue generation and user retention. In the habit phase, players are progressing through the game by leveling up their characters, upgrading their gear, or building their villages. At this stage, it is best to sell progress, something to speed up the leveling progress. But there's a few things to keep in mind. You don't want to put a hard pay gate. Having a level that you can only pay to access is a bad idea because it will drive a lot of players away. But you also want to keep an acceptable power gap between the paying players and the F2P players in the game. Last but not least, the hobby phase. This is where the players reach late game stage where they have a lot of things maxed out. At this stage, players are more inclined to buy what I call consumables. What is this? In every mobile game, you have action points or life that you will need to use to go into a battle. And the action points or life regenerates every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes, depending on the game. And you can sell a consumable that allows the player to play immediately instead of having to wait. So that is to say, at this stage, there's no upper cap of spending. There are a lot more ideas that inspire us developers on how to capitalize on the game thanks to behavioral psychology. And here I'd like to introduce the idea of Daniel Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize for his research and discoveries in the field. Basically, our brains have two ways of forming thoughts, the fast way and the slow way. The fast way is automatic and intuitive. If I ask you to complete the sentence, bread and, you know the next word is butter without thinking. The slow way is analytic and logical. If I ask you to count the number of times I say the word the in the next minute, or to calculate what's 45 times 12, it'll get your way to work in the slow mode. When we entice players to spend money on the game, we want to get their brains to think in the fast mode, in the hot state. In practice, you can implement this in two ways. A paid booster item right before the player goes into the game, or a paid revive item after the player loses. And you can add a timer on the player's purchase to tap into the fear of missing out. If you don't buy within 10 seconds, then you're missing out on the item. There are a million ways that you could monetize the game. And in short, you need to make your game appealing to all types of players, namely the achievers, the socializers, the killers, and the explorers. You could sell items by stage of progress the players in. And you need to make players think fast. And most importantly, you need to appeal to all players, but without driving a certain type of player away. I hope all of you will go on to design games that make tons and tons of profit. And we're now going to switch gears and listen to my colleague Roni talk about the relationship between game and art. Thank you for your time.